so that we can reach more people. But also sometimes you have experts not based in Bangalore, and we don't want to miss out on getting them on board. Uh, with that, I'll invite Professor Chakravarti, the chairman of CPDM, to kindly come and give a very brief introduction about CPDM. We do that every time. The idea is, of course, is to remind people of who we are, and also every time new people join in, so it gives them an overview of what the department is about.
Okay, so uh, good evening, and for some of you, welcome back, and for some of you, welcome to this event. I'm just going to give a very quick overview of the department for those who already do not know about it. Um, the M.Des program got established in 1997. The department was established a year after, and it has been a wonderful journey. This is the dream. Part of it is the current building, part of it is being built, half of it is built, the other half is still in the process of being built. So we hope that one day we will have a completely integrated building. We have been having an interesting journey. We are, according to QS ranking, one of the top 3 design schools in the country. But in terms of design research, practice and management is the category that Stanford University ranking or study on citations does. In terms of the number of faculty in that top 2%, we are among the top 10 in the world. This is just a quick overview. We have a relatively small program with 400 plus students who come up in these 25 years. We started with only 8 students, then became 13, then became 15, now it is 31, but for last 5 years, because of the building reconstruction, and we could not take half of those students. So we are well below our capacity. This year, I understand we probably will be taking more. We also have a very sizable PhD and research, master's research students, 65 right now on roll. A lot of patents, because there is a strong emphasis on building and testing and so on. And we also have a small program in tech smart manufacturing. We are very lucky with our students and faculty, lots of awards for them. I'll show some of them in the following slides. This year, Red Dot product award was won by 2 of our ex-students, Yogansh, and it is going to come. Okay, so stealing the thunder from later. But anyway, these are some of the sort of Time magazine mentioned for one of the products that Mona Sharma came up with Red Dot award. For 2 consecutive years, the James Dyson award was won by students from our faculty. And so on. Okay, I will not get into detail. And this continues. Startup culture is something that is very strong in this department, and this is one of the examples. I think Sickle Innovation and multiple award-winning Agritech company. This is okay. So it is here that this one has come now. So ultra human ring air. It's basically a sleep parameters picking up kind of device that is something that you don't want to put a whole headgear on, or even something like this is going to be intrusive to your sleep. So this is a fairly non-intrusive one. Also, the first place in the robotics innovation lab, one in ICRA, one of the most prestigious conferences in the world in robotics this year. Okay, we are lucky to have very illustrious group of students then becoming faculty. I think some of the faces are already here, others are elsewhere. So this is what we try to, I think we should change this now. Vision has become more slick than this. But anyway, this is the old vision that has not so different from the new vision. But basically, we have a focus on design and manufacturing. We want to excel in those so that we can help develop complex products and systems. And that we are not averse to technology. Okay, technology intensive is okay with us, but it must have strong social impact. That is important. And embracing not just technology, but also aesthetic, usable, and sustainable. So that is the motto. These are some of the mission points. Develop professionals, leaders, innovate products, and of course develop knowledge as part of research. Um, I will not belabor the point, but we are an average department in the institute, about 11 core faculty, about 120 students, and so on. But a lot of associate and participating faculty. So we are very strongly connected to the ecosystem within the institute and beyond, because we have over 10 mentors from practice. So they are top professionals in industry, and they connect us to industry. We started several things. IISc started the first PhD program with Pradeep Yamiagar, who graduated, then went and joined IIT Guwahati as a faculty. And then that mantle is taken up by CPDM as it goes on. First smart factory in India, first design observatory, first PLM conference, and so on. And our really strong point is research, 20 plus editorships in major international journals. These are some of the major initiatives within the country: technology business incubator in geriatric healthcare, smart factory, and so on, and also to establish conference series. So that brings to the agenda, and I pass on to Professor Vishal. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Chakravarti. So with that, we come directly to the program for the day. I think this was already shared with everyone, and this has been the template. So we have four experts. We invite them to give a brief 10-minute sort of position presentation, and that is followed by panel discussion, which is moderated by me, and then we'll open it up for Q&A from the audience. And if we have some of the alumni from the 14th batch, so with each event we invite alumni of that specific batch. So if it's the first event, first batch, and so on. I don't see any of them as of now online. The invitation was sent a bit late, so that's my fault. But if they are there, then we'll listen from them what their trajectory has been, what they've been doing since graduating from CPDM. And we'll close with a thanking note. Usually we follow it up with a high tea, but this time it was reversed because we have of their summer school. Sure. Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah. That's right. That's right. Yes. All right. So with that, these are our panelists. I'll introduce them as they go along. Since we have Mr. Sudhir Sharma online, and we always invite our online speakers to go first, I'll invite him to give his talk to begin with. So Sudhir, if you could sort of put up your slides. And while you do that, I'll give a brief, read out your brief bio for the benefit of the audience. So if you can put up your slides, please. I'll have to stop it here, right?
Not yet, right?
No, we can't see it as yet. Yeah, it's up there. So just give me a minute to just read out your bio.
Sure.
So Sudhir Sharma is founder and CEO of Indie Design, and is a known design and business transformation consultant with 30 plus years of experience. He's a graduate of NID, and he has played a pivotal role in shaping the brands of renowned companies in India, including ICICI, Bajaj Auto, Bajaj Finserv, Venky's, Eka Mobility, Varak, and so on. Is not only the publisher and editor of Design India magazine, but also the founder of India's Best Design Awards and the Design India show. So he's definitely someone who sort of understands the design landscape very well in India. This year, he has launched India's Best Design Student Awards. So again, something for the students to watch out. And these initiatives celebrate and recognize excellence in the design industry. So these are all yours.
Do have 10 minutes. I hope this works. Okay, so thank you for having me here. Though I realize that all of you, or most of you, are from product design and manufacturing areas. I'm not. I do work with a lot of manufacturers and a lot of product designers, but most of my work is related to brands and setting up strategies for the markets. Am I audible? Can you
Yes,
hear
yes,
me?
please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I decided to share today, since it's only 10 minutes, is a part of my larger presentation, which I normally do on future of Indian design, which I think is a combination of design, culture, and tech, all these three areas working together. And I thought I will talk about a area which is probably not very well understood, and that is culture. So I thought, how do we actually relate to culture is in design is very important. And this is probably the more ubiquitous area. It doesn't matter whether you are a graphic designer or you're an industrial designer or you are an architect. I think this is, we need to figure out how do we relate to culture to sort of create different kind of innovations. And I'll show you some projects as well. Culture shapes the beliefs. Now, when I talk about culture, I'm talking about culture of a community, shapes the beliefs, customs, and practices of different groups of people. Now, in most of the design parts, we do have user personas and user experience as a part of design, right? So this is the larger community as a user group which comes in. Culture can greatly influence the reception and effectiveness of design solutions. I'll show you in some of my examples how understanding culture is in a way, building for success into the work which you're doing for your customers or for your clients. Culture influences design through values, beliefs, and behaviors of different communities. This is how we live, this is what we believe in, and this is how we progress together. Pandit Nehru said that culture is widening of the mind and the spirit. In a way, it is progressive to think of that. And Tim Brown said, culture is not only a set of customs and beliefs shared by a community, a group, but also the complex interplay between those beliefs and the context in which they exist. Now remember this, context is what shapes most of the work which we do. And the context is not just technology or not just economic, but it's also the belief system. It's how do people react and how do people go ahead and various things, right? So within that, okay, let me just see if I have it. Sorry. So for a long time, I've been, now it's almost 35 years, 33 years, since 34 years I'm working. And it has been a gradual discovery into culture, that you need to look inside to actually produce things and produce or to create something for the outside. And what I found by all my travels and lectures all over is that the Indian culture is perhaps the oldest and the richest culture in the world. This you find right from airports to roads to shops, shopping malls, wherever, and that actually includes people as well. Very diverse, very spiritual, very deep rooted, traditional. There are a lot of things which are going on for years, and we need to understand them. So it's a mosaic of different religions, languages, customs, traditions that have evolved over thousands of years. So a lot of times we need to look inside and behind. What do we need to do as designers? Observe, learn, respect, and use the culture in different work which we do, right? So let me show it the. Okay, so I'll show you one example of work which I'm sure you must be very familiar with, is ICICI. This I created these colors and this branding in 1996. Around the time, it wasn't called ICICI at that time, it was called Industrial Credit and Investment Corporation of India. Very long name. So the first exercise, of course, was to bring the name, make the name sharp. And I had a very clear brief since the bank side to make it blue. we wanted a brand which is blue because he came from Citibank, Malaysia, and Citibank made sense. So I had to go back and check why Citibank was blue, and I was fascinated by Paula Scher's story of how the New York skyline had this gradation of blue early morning, and I was fascinated that I was fascinated by the thought process, and I was fascinated by the technology. And 1996 was the time we did not have inkjet printers in India. Most of the hoardings were hand painted, fascias were hand painted. This was probably the country's first inkjet printed fascia, which we printed in Israel on a machine which was being built at that time called Duotech as a sample. And we went ahead, and obviously my first task was to move from blue. So I had to prove it to them that blue is not an Indian color. It's a very European, very American color. In Asia, we are very warm color. We are reds and burgundies and oranges and so of course this is what the color which was decided. But yeah, so I had to make a 200 slide presentation of different rituals and cultures and how we use color in India, how irrespective of which religion, we have very, very warm color. We are very warm color people. With one technical problem which we had was that time in 1996, there were only two banks in the world which used red in their identity. One was Tomato Bank in Japan, which of course was red, and there was a Espana in Spain because it had a Miro's painting as an identity, and the painting had a part of red. So bankers were very averse to using red. Somehow red doesn't go with profitability. So we had to persuade them a lot and actually put up one sample in one place against a Citibank fascia. And once the lights went in, and it was 100%. Every poll which was done, 100% people said we need to go for this because this is burgundy to orange was the color which we saw first time in the banking sector in India. And it just so happened that after that, every bank which we've had, Axis, Baroda, HDFC, whatever, everything landed up with this. So this was one thing which I wanted to share with you. And second is another very interesting, sorry. Yeah, a very interesting story. I have 3 minutes, so I'll quickly just show this. Is a client I have 10 years back, we started working with this client in Rajasthan, in Bikaner. His name was Bikanan Chanmal. They made bhujia, and they had the packaging and design was done on Coral Draw by someone which actually did not relate to anything. So I had my designers who actually went down to the place and we studied, we did research in the museums, we created special icons, got back, related the brand to the local culture of Rajasthan, and the colors and the motifs. And then the brand is actually doing very well today. It's 10 years. I think the time we started working with the brand, it was about 15 crores worth revenue. Today, they're doing about 450 crores, and we do export quite a lot in many countries, not just in India. It goes as the ethnic namkeen brand, though we don't give much value to this, but it does come across as a very royal brand, right? So this was another project. I have used the similar thing now. Right now, we're working on a project in Nepal, and we're designing a building. So it's architecture and then interiors of that building. It's a showroom. Okay. I don't have that here, but that building is under construction. We have the opening next month coming up. Again, we've studied the local culture and we've taken a lot from local culture. And this is another one which we worked on in Africa. It's a project implemented around 60 showrooms across Africa, where we had to go and study the African culture, their textiles, their colors, their motifs. And we landed up designing a new brand altogether with the retail sensibility, which is closer to what they have in Africa. So I think that's where I will stop. Thank you. I can't hear you.
Thank you. That was wonderful, and thanks for keeping to the time. We'll go through all the presentations and then we'll come back to the questions if that's okay with you.
Sure. How do I stop sharing?
I think you can unshare, and I'll try to share slides from here anyway. So I'll ask.
Sure.
Okay, you want to present the last? So okay, so we'll then next go to Pavitra, right? So again, I'll just put up the slides from here. I have got the slides here. Okay, first I have to check whether it's on. Yes, it's on. Okay, so you need to stop sharing your slides. Yeah, thanks. Right, it's working, I guess. Right, Pavitra, I'll invite you to come here. And where's the other mic? Okay, let me just introduce you. Please have a seat. And all right, so Pavitra Ramaswamy is a dedicated professional with 5 years of experience in user research, currently employed at Google. She holds a master's degree from the University of Maryland. She has honed her expertise at the intersection of technology and user experience with a profound commitment to human-centered design thinking and a genuine empathy for users. She's driven by a passion for inclusive design, striving to enhance accessibility and usability. Her work embodies a deep understanding of user needs and an unwavering dedication to creating meaningful and user-centric solutions.
Can you hear me?
Experience, right?
So my presentation is going to probably be a slightly different take. I wanted to do a retrospective on how my journey so far has been through UX research. And I'll get started. Some fun facts about me before that. I collect coins, notes, and metro cards from every new place that I visit. I have a huge bunch of collection. And I'm a thriver for planning and also huge chunks of text. So you'll see my in the mornings like writing up a to-do list with a cup of coffee. And like Vishal also mentioned, I'm passionate about finding crossovers between usability and accessibility. So I believe in designing for accessibility actually designs for everyone. And my journey so far has been, I started with my bachelor's in India, information technology, worked for a year as a product analyst, punching numbers, talking to customers, realized I wanted to do more. So got into my master's degree at University of Maryland, graduated with human computer interaction masters. At the same time, I was also interning at SolidWorks in both design and research. That's where I felt that I had a calling and I had more passion towards research, still with a design approach, but also more towards communicating with users, learning from their lived experiences. And so first started in the academia as a research assistant in accessibility. So running research studies with people with disabilities, understanding their needs, their experiences, and how things shape up for them. And that paved my way to Google. And it's been, I think, 4 years for me now here. And so to any research and background studies that I do, I try to mentally place a process in front of me. I always start with identifying what research priorities are and essentially beginning with the end in mind. And so understanding context, I feel, is very crucial because that's when we get our research also right. And not particularly in any domains of research, right? I'm more used to user research, so you can take this to be that perspective as well. But so does every other step in the planning, you may ask. So all of these steps that I have listed here, this may seem universal these can be applied to several different domains, but there would be nuances that you notice along the way. For example, the planning research in itself would include recruitment, meeting logistics, scoping out research. So many different things that come together, and it forms a synergy at that point. Again, like I said, you'll see a lot of text, and I thrive on text. I'm a researcher also, not a lot of visuals. So some of the research highlights that I wanted to share a little bit. Like I said, I started my journey in academia, then transitioned over to consumer user groups, from there to internal teams, and now have been in enterprise or cloud space for the last 2-3 years now. And there have been many research projects that I've worked on, but with this, I wanted to specifically highlight that there's no specific horizon that research can yield. And I believe that research consumption during and post research is most valuable to the impact of work. To share a little bit, I've played a crucial part in co-developing a user journey benchmarking measurement framework from the lens of accessibility. How can we go about evaluating metrics that work for assessing the needs of people with disabilities versus the needs of people without disabilities, and from there influencing Go decisions, roadmaps for operating system supports, exploring new and varied concepts with customers, using participatory design, concept testing, evaluation, and understanding mental models around cloud migration and modernization. And more to consumer spaces in like museums. How do we improve discoverability and findability of archived materials and resources? One of the things that I wanted to highlight as part of this was more so bring in that flavor of like, what is it that I learned and observed working in each of these areas? With the consumer space, I've observed it to be more relatable. We try to put ourselves in the shoe of the users most times. So we think about, okay, is this a problem? How do we solve for it? What are the different journeys within the tasks that we'll be looking at? And then there's so many different ways in which you can try to find out participants. If at all there's one question in mind, you're very curious, you're looking to be, understanding more about what is it that you want to do next. There's so many different approaches that you can take, many areas where you could just walk in, you'd find people that you can talk to, and whomsoever you get and whatever data, right, that's going to be ultimately superficial and helpful for us. And sometimes also requires applying creative methods like going out onto the streets, running field research with participants. You try to also make changes to how you would communicate, make changes to how you would plan your research. So sometimes it also requires you to apply creative methods than more traditional methods that you may be used to. With the employees, internal employees research group, what I've noticed that the processes are quicker, so that kind of like takes you to quicker insights pretty soon. And you all must be knowing there's a lot of like legal hassle also that we'll need to go through, especially in how we are collecting data, how we are storing data and tracking all of the information that we have. So I felt that there was less legal hassle, but except PII, personal identifiable information that we will be having. But also this yields and you're able to visualize your impact pretty much quickly in that. And moving over to enterprise or cloud, it is sort of felt like something that's too technical, something that also requires continuous learning. Every new project that we take up will have some sort of learning that will go in. And the needs also vary across B2B. So it's very tough to also generalize at some point. You're learning something new about an organization, but you also unlearn about that and then go on to learning something new in another organization. And these may be for the same reasons that you're running research for. And lastly, there are so many different players in the ecosystem, so many different things that each player in the ecosystem also does that leads to complex user journey. So identifying what a start and end can be very enriching also. And lastly, I wanted to end with, I know I have a couple minutes here, my top takeaways running research across these three domains. So you can call it like the intersection. I'd say I've learned that placing users in the forefront is necessary, but also placing business needs in line with user needs. What thrives your business? What is the impact that what you're doing will cause to the business is also equally important. And all the more important for user research is also perspective seeking. So you take your stakeholders along your journey, get more collaboration happen. You get a lot more perspectives come in from people that are of different roles. All of them may have slightly different approaches. So all of those can aid to better research planning as well. And another thing that I've noticed is users tend to share more when there is an open playground in front of them. For example, even if your concept is, fully furnished, you have everything that you want to test in front of them, portraying a face that, this is very early, all your feedback is going to be super helpful, actually opens up a much bigger space for you to collect more insights as well. And particularly for research methods, I feel like, jack of all trades, but master of none or one is also okay. It's okay to go deep in one, but also is good to have a couple of them that you're familiar with, so you can apply them creatively as you need on the go. And like I said, I think collaboration is key. Another is research is momentary, but whatever research insights that you generate is going to be forever. So save it for later use, keep it forever, go back, revisit it, see how things have changed. And that's going to also influence how you look at your product or whatever you're building in a later point of time. And I think Sudhir also mentioned this, embracing one another's culture will also go a long way. And I think Google specifically also takes pride in trying to understand different cultures. How do we communicate across different cultures? And that's something that we've also imbibed with whatever research we've run so far. How is it that we can communicate with care? What other notions and aspects of each other's culture can we learn and incorporate into research? And with that, I want to end by saying that it's a total privilege being able to hear user stories, exploring their mindsets, and working our way towards shaping their experiences.
Right, thank you. Again, I will not make a mistake of taking this as the mic. I've done that twice, I think last event as well. All right, thanks, Pavitra. Uh, we'll go to the next talk, and it was good to see how sort of things connect from culture to culture and company cultures. So she said early right up front that it'll be difficult to share slides which are related to the corporate they work for, right? Because corporates don't allow you to share all of that. So you have to understand that context too. With that, I'll go to our next speaker. So we'll have Dr. Shakuntala Acharya. Again, I'll invite you here. I'll put on the slides, but just give me a minute. I'll just read out the introduction. I didn't get a bio. I thought I'll just find it out. So Shakuntala Acharya is an assistant professor at IIT Guwahati, and she did a PhD at IISc. And before that, she had at some point joined the master's at CEPT, which she never completed, I believe. And she did a bachelor's in art from RV College in architecture. And her bio in LinkedIn says a designer at heart and a researcher by spirit. And her research interests include design conceptualization, creativity and innovation, sustainability and environmentally benign design, design pedagogy, problem solving, thinking, design methodology. Right. Okay. So see, I did my research as well here. Just give me one moment. I'll share your slide and which one was yours?
So it's our fault, is it? Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. If I'm not very audible,
it's because I'm spent, very well spent, I must add. Had an exciting week, which was on design research. And I particularly like, by design or not, how conversation is moving from industry to a designer researcher to another designer researcher, and then so on. A very quick introduction was given to you by Vishal, and thank you for that. But I just thought I would also take you through a quick journey of mine from here till Guwahati and all its little pit stops and crossroads along the way. And it's been very fascinating because when I entered my PhD here, I was particularly keen on working on sustainability and, of course, intending to change the world. And along this journey, I got the opportunity to work on varied areas of design and research on those areas, such as creativity and innovation, such as pedagogy, and all these kind of enabled me to then pursue my career today as a design faculty at IIT Guwahati. I asked Vishal, what is the expectation? What are the deliverables? Please make my life easy because I've been presenting pretty much every other day in these last 5 days. And he said, anything. So I thought, let's start with something very basic, like the ABCs. And of course, we all know D for, oh, everybody's spent. Let's change that. All right. So I thought, let's take you through some of the design projects we do. So let's talk about a design project. This is particularly our recent master's thesis. I've had the grand fortune of working on several bachelor's and master's thesis projects. And we, in this particular project, looked at fostering resilience in novice teachers by designing a systemic approach towards reflection. Now, while it may look very exciting, we eventually developed a box, which was, the product was named Kasturi, within you, with an inspiration from the line Kasturi Kundal Base, which means just like the musk deer searches for the musk all over and finds that it is in him, so is this in you. So in every teacher, we try to inspire that your essence of teaching and that belies in you, and how to empower a novice teacher. But all this design and all its elements, which took the novice designer through experiences, through vocabulary, through emotion, through reflection, through various elements of guided reflection, both analytical and emotional. This kind of leaned or was soundly rooted in theoretical models of knowledge transfer. So we had a mentorship program, and how tacit knowledge of senior teachers can become extremely empowering. And as the teacher grows, they develop their own, combine, internalize, and then again spread it, and how a model was created. And this particular project received very well reception because we tested it out at the schools out there. Another particular work that I've had the fortune of doing over the last few years has been putting together a book, a textbook, to be more precise, and that too, the introduction of sustainability into the curriculum of civil engineering at second year. And this book really gave me an opportunity to look at the importance, or look at and share the importance and relevance that history and the socioeconomic drivers that drive design and engineering, and then eventually culminate into disciplines, and perhaps give the young engineers a look into how you landed up where you are, particularly when we look at civil engineering, which is, well, the oldest discipline of engineering, where you had military and civil. But it also allowed to reflect on our shared histories. Now, I'm an architecture student, and we had delved many years into history and elements and the isms, impressionism, realism, modernism, and these this is a shared history, not only for civil engineers, or it is also a shared history for mechanical engineers, for industrial designers, for product designers, for today's UI UX designers. We're all coming from that rich shared history or culture, if I may. Right? And the culture, in addition of sustainability, which is also prevalent in our country or in our traditions, is also something that I had the opportunity to bring out. So this was another interesting adventure. And of course, research. So C for research, contribution, because that's the key element, right? What did you do? What was your contribution towards it? And this is particular piece we will be presenting very soon at the upcoming International Conference on Engineering Design, which is designing for a very marginalized group, a group where user participation is often used because we're looking at design of assistive devices. So a lot of user research is important. But these users are children who have particular disability or communication disorder. Now, handling children, if any of you know, well, I won't say handling. They will handle you or mishandle you. But receiving feedback from children can be quite dicey. You know, I think emoticons work very well there. You know, thumbs up, thumbs down, that's excellent when it comes to children, but receiving granular feedback is quite difficult. Add to that a group where they have communication disorder, not intellectual difficulties, right? So this became exciting because particularly my student who's working on the area has had experience in developing devices, but what was important here was to revisit the approach. Now, as designers, that's something that you need to reflect on, or maybe also as educators, we reflect on our process or our approach. And there's a lot of work done, a lot of papers we found which talks about participatory and co-design, but how do you participate with a group who is unable to offer you feedback? So the challenge in whom to support and how to find mitigative measures is what we are delving into right now. It is not complete, but we have started, and we found that prototyping and going to site and communicating, doing research about the design process through design has been quite exciting, and we are, like I said, presenting this. So these are the various areas in which I have been working on, or just a snippet of it in these last few years. And I think what it all culminates down to, which is also one of my key interests, is what is the D in design for? There's a lot of theories that talk to you about the creativity, which is supposed to be synonymous with all designers, right? You are a designer, you must be very creative. How many of you have heard this? But what is the understanding of creative? But, well, I will not go into that. I think Dr. Srinivasan is here. He will define it and give me all the references. But I think what we were discussing and what I often question as an academic is, what drives my students or the designer? So what is that drive? Because I understand your cognitive skills and its ability to be trained and honed and otherwise, or intoned. But what about your creative drive? So I do not have a conclusive answer because I am a researcher. I have posed questions. I have a lot of hypotheses and I'm not yet there. But I thought it would be interesting to share with you. And if you all have something to share with me or give me feedback on, I would be very excited to hear it. That what is this secret magic masala called drive? And these are largely the areas in which I have been working and would love to collaborate and work further. Thank you.
Right. All right, so our next speaker is Dr. Prashad Onkar, who is currently an associate professor and head of the Department of Design at IIT Hyderabad. Prior to that, Prior to working in Hyderabad, he has also worked in IIT Guwahati. He was also a visiting researcher at Virtual Prototyping Lab, Department of Mechanical Engineering, Politecnico di Milano. He completed his PhD from IISc and holds an M.Tech in Product Design and Manufacturing from VTU and a Bachelor's in Engineering, again from Karnataka University. His research interests are design cognition and emotion, human-computer interactions and experiences, 3D sketching, haptics, and more. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Vishal.
Take a seat. Take a seat.
Yeah.
It's a complex.
So Vishal already mentioned that.
Yeah,
I'm sharing. I'm sharing. So okay. So Vishal told that already there's a lot of chaos. I thought I will add some more chaos to that so that I can change and see we are still resilient and thriving. So thanks for giving this opportunity. So I just wanted to share some like what Shakuntala was sharing some of the students' project. I thought I'll share some projects, but you see, the everybody stick to their time. So I thought the design cannot be that systematic. So I have prepared 17 slides. We will see. Okay. And we have been talking for almost 3-4 days. I thought I'll talk less, so I have more video content. So, but I will try to cover some of the. And I was also thinking that already there are people who have seen this thing, and then I don't want that to be repetitive. But I'll just briefly cover. Just to, as already Vishal has introduced, so currently I'm heading the design department at IIT Hyderabad, and this is our dream. Mostly everything is there in concrete, so hopefully we'll be there inside. So yeah, when I joined IIT Hyderabad after a short span at IIT Guwahati, that was the time when Google had launched this Google Cardboard, and we thought that that is something which is in terms of cost effectiveness, it's an easy way to reach larger people so that they can start using or having content through virtual reality. So we thought of putting this in the context of a school, and then we try to create some content for that and see how VR environment enables school children to learn. This is one of the projects, and then we got some initial understanding, and we were very much thrilled by that, and we thought, why can't we scale it up? So we actually had a proper systematic way to document any heritage monument, and it can be done in a distributed way. There was a platform which was created, and across state of Telangana there were roughly around 10 to 12 monuments we have documented through VR, and then there's a platform where students can learn. But again, the challenge was into getting into the hardware aspect. So that was the time when there were no standalone devices like Oculus Go and all. The other project which I've been working as part of my research is more to do with the role of virtual reality and role of emotions in the design, early design phase. And this is primarily to understand there's a lot of work which is happening in the cognitive understanding of design activity. Then we were trying to look at how do we understand and try to augment the existing understanding with the addition of emotional state of the designers. I'll not go into the details because already these have been discussed, but I want to mention one project where we are looked at. Traditionally I've been looking at interfaces, not just human-computer interface, but interface like design and manufacturing, cognition and emotion. So this is one of the projects where we looked at, okay, how design can influence manufacturing, and especially with the advent of additive manufacturing, there are much more possibilities which kind of geometries which earlier we were not able to manufacture, now we are able to create those kind of mathematical shapes. And then we developed a software. This is it's available in an open source platform. Anybody can download and use it. Basically, it generates a lattice structure depending on the requirement of different type of densities, etc. And then this was not intended, but we thought of doing in terms of testing also. You see that there are different ways in which the materials fail. So you can see that there is a fault line, or which the and suddenly it loses the strength. But now if I design the same lattice structure with a different configuration, you see that what is called as layering happens. So this can provide higher energy absorption, and there are, so these are all possibilities which are now we can do with the help of customizing our requirements, where I want it to absorb more uh, load or something like that. I can customize to that. Okay, so maybe these are roughly the projects. So now I'll slightly move on to the video parts. Let us see if these videos work. So this was one of our initial explorations, where we wanted to understand interactive experiences, and there was no goal as such. These are purely um, the students' endeavor to come up with something which is interesting. So, is there audio?
Can you test if audio is playing?
No.
You have to check the settings.
How do you check?
I think in your thing you'll have to give that option of include while sharing. While sharing, so you have to reshare.
Okay.
How many shares? See this and
But I yeah also.
in Teams you have to check that Teams and sharing. Let's do you take from them. Share question. Yes. I was trying to I've been partly the
So so what is happening here is why there is echo? It's mute.
Why are you getting echo?
Okay. Okay, let me mute. Okay. Yeah. I think it's audible. Please let us know if it is not audible online. Uh, so the idea here was to look at different type of configurations and then see how different type of interfaces will help us to visualize certain experiences. So this is another experience which we try to create, where we are trying to look at uh, the existing infrastructure where we have some of the gadgets like cave and some different type of sensors, and see what are the possibilities which we can look at. And these are purely exploratory, so there is no intention behind that, just to create a different sense of experience. So essentially what you are seeing is these are basically 3D point clouds projected in a cave environment. So the idea here was to look at what are the possibilities with which we can integrate these sensors and visualizations and then create different moods. And initially this was more of a exploratory in nature, and but then we try to connect with many other sources. Say for example in this, whatever the basically it's called dance of flowers, where the flowers, shape of the flowers, the color, texture are all generated by different parameters which we are collecting. It can be sound, it can be some other any parameter which you are collecting from these sensors, and that is all projected in a visual form. So and this can actually done with a live performance. Let us say somebody is performing live, and that can be captured and then that can be projected in a 3D environment. So these are some of the, but here we have used a video, and then from that video you extract only the performers, and then try to fit in with these type of representations. So now you see that, and even motion itself can be one of the parameters. Input. So this is where you interactively explore the space as well as you create experiences. So, but then later on, okay, what is the use of this? You are just creating something and then there is no meaning or there is no purpose to this. So then there's one student who actually took up of developing a game, and these are basically to create a sense of nostalgia. That these are we basically developed two games. One is the one which is Pac-Man, the other one is Snake. So these are the two common games, but what is the difference here is you are playing this game on multiple walls. Like the snakes can go on that wall, come here, and in a cave environment, and this is where they play the games in a slightly longer video, but anyway. It's called Connect. And it's a multiplayer game, and it's a collaborative game. If any one of them is caught, then it's game over for both of them. So they have to collaboratively play the game so that, and you see these white boxes, these are like tunnels. If you go here, you can appear from somewhere else. Okay. So this is the snake part. But you need to have a cave.
Loved it. you could actually move around the game, which is like so cool.
It was like bringing back the childhood memories. It was much more engaging than the arcade box. As a child, when I used to play with my brother.
I'll just skip this.
Then me.
Okay. Anyway,
kids
so
in a
this is one
spatially
of the
augmented
ideas that
environment.
how do we
The
use
aim of
these
Connect is to
environment.
create an
Then we slightly looked at what currently is known as tangible interaction, tangible computing, etc. And there's something called as ultra haptics, where it can generate haptic feedback in midair without you wearing things, and then see how can we make use of these type of gadgets. Now I just can, so this is available in many of these high-end cars, where I can control the volume just by moving my hand. Not just moving my hand, but I also get a sense of feedback. Okay, whether I am increasing the volume or decreasing the volume. So now I can just use this. Of course, that is very difficult to put it in a video thing, because you are actually feeling the button or whatever which you are pushing. So then we thought, okay, let us make a more creative, or make it more application oriented. And then we thought, we took up this problem of see, typically there are some animators in the group, and they the way they have to give certain camera motions when they are creating these animations. So this is how typically they do. There are frames, and then there is a path along which the camera has to move, and then there is an environment which is created. So either that way, or now there are platforms like Unity, Unreal, where you either give them some physics based animation, or you do a lot of programming. So we thought of developing that. So this is the last video. I think we can stop after this. So this whole video is done by just moving the camera tangible. We can actually hold the camera and then move around this, and then this happens in the virtual world. There is visual programming, there is lighting control. So you can just move your pad, and then that is connected to the camera, and then thank you.
Thank you, Prashad. Very interactive. Of course, we could watch more videos if we had more time, but please share the more videos, and of course, we'll find time for that later. Usually we go directly to the panel discussion, but instead of doing that, we'll first take the questions. We've had the first speakers talk, a lot of interesting overlaps. So online as well as, you can raise your hands here, and we'll bring the mic to you. Okay. And please, the points who you direct your questions who you are.
Thank you for the talk from all of you. My question is to Ms. Pavitra. So, since you have extensively worked on accessibility and this kind of niche population, I wanted to understand, as a researcher from an industry and as well as your personal experience, what has been your challenges in interacting with these special users, and also what were your strategies, or how did you sort of overcome those? If you could highlight a few.
That's a very good question, actually. And it needs, I feel like maybe I should start with more preparation, planning for, having backups in mind. However you plan your research to go, when you get on the ground, there's going to be so many surprises that you see. And I think your project that you were talking about with communication disorder, like working with communication disorders, I had a very similar project that I was working on for people with cognitive disabilities. And I had a plan. I wanted to adhere to the plan. We had a team. We had already prepared on how we would, go at it when we get onto the place, and tackle each group by how we've already segregated our bits to be. When we got there, it seemed very different than how we had already laid out our plan for. So that's the day that I realized, momentarily thinking about creative research ideas is important, and also being able to actually plan for how you think things may go wrong. Even if you don't anticipate it to, you may want to also like write about, okay, if this doesn't work, what else would you do? For example, especially the span of attention between one person to another may vary. So trying to cater to all of those also was very important. So the next time around, whatever I do is spend more time with planning, keep plan B, plan C, plan D, however more plans that you can. So you can actually get to the end outcome that you want when you're on the ground, rather than you're at the time thinking about what is it, how can I overcome the situation, sort of.
My question is for Sudhir. Yeah, I'm Divakar from this department. The culture, yeah, is very important, and the more we think about design, more culture, importance of culture starts becoming relevant. When you start designing, it is either art or technology. There is the two corners. The culture comes with more maturity. Yeah, that is my view, and I see that more senior people talk about culture than more junior people. Yeah. So therefore, my question is that when you want to translate or imbibe that culture or exploit that aspect of society, it often remains limited to visual elements. Is it because it is more direct rather than the influence of culture in the non-visual elements of design? Right? What is your take on the non-visual elements of design as influence of culture?
Yeah, thank you. Lovely question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, lovely question. Very good question. But I think visual is probably the lowest hanging fruit. That's something we see more, are able to react to it. But culture is an experience. It's a complete experience as well, right? So if you see in terms of the user experience today, or the interaction with the users or the customers. So if it's a marketing issue, then the customer issue in that. If it's a product design, if it's a service design, it's the whole reference to culture is how and what we are used to, things around us. I'll give an example. Recently, I'm giving you very real examples. So these are really not academic examples. A lot of research is employed into understanding the user behavior and where does it originate from. Is it something you should use it or junk it or modify or move ahead? We are working on a few projects to do with showrooms, automobile showrooms, right? So within the automobile showrooms, for example, there's a whole feeling and there's a whole culture comes in, and how do you welcome something as important as an automobile into your family, right? So that goes beyond the visual elements. Of course, there's lots of visual dynamics in that, but the rituals get in, the whole experience part comes in, right? The music comes in. It's how do people welcome something into their household, which is very important. So a car is probably a few times the salary of a person in a year. So it's a very large investment for a person, right? It's like investing into a house. What happens when you make that kind of strong decisions? So what does the showroom have to do? So it's a lot to do with the rituals, the the experience of delivering the car. So it is a lot to do with the experience part. Since I do work with a lot of automobile companies, and we do work a lot with CMF, product design as well, interiors. I can tell you that the interior of a car is completely influenced by the culture as well. So we've been studying at, for example, a person who buys a car which is worth more than 20 lakh rupees. His expectations of materials and the responses within the car of the various things is very different than a person who's going to buy a 4 lakh rupees car or a 3 lakh rupees car. The textures, the elements, for example, I'll give you a very tangible thing. The BMWs, Audis, Mercedes spend lots of money, millions of rupees to match the leather texture with the plastic texture, with the metal texture, with any other material that they have inside. So they have this sense of minimalism coming in. You know, everything needs to look same, irrespective of what. In our culture, if you actually go down and study this, we're not minimalist people. We are maximalist people. We love more. We love more things. So what we found is people like more textures. They like plastics to be coarser, not finer, right? They want, if there is a shade of red, they want 3 shades of red. The more, the better, not the less. So it does affect. So cultures, it's easier in visual elements because we're very used to art and probably faster. It's very quickly. It's easy to put something on your head and say I'm a part of this culture, than to actually learn the whole ritual and go through that experience. What does a coconut mean? Why do you need to break a coconut? Why do you need to put your hands together? Why do you need to kneel in a certain way? That's much more. But I think more than the visual, it's the experience. Whether it's the feel part, it's the function part, is the service part, is the ritual part, or even the visual part. So everything, it defines everything. Not to say that we follow the culture all the time. It's good to know the culture. So I did mention, I did say that I had a very short presentation on this. That's not all. You need to study the culture. You need to get to know it, but you don't have to just do it the way it was done. Chances are that you might come and say, no, the time is for us to leave it behind and move somewhere else. And we do that very often as well. But it's important to educate people in terms of, if you're looking for mass adoption, for example. And I talk because a lot of commercial design operations happen within the realm of marketing. And marketing is to appeal to more and more people, more and more sales, more and more mass appeal, right? And there's no better tool than culture to go for that. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Right. Any more questions? Okay, seems we don't have from the audience, so I'll continue with this question itself. Okay, yeah, please.
Not good to have a question in a session only with one question, 2 questions. Yeah, it is about the inclusivity or accessibility that you're referring to, right? It is a new, not so new in terms of the emphasis, but in terms of how you refer to that. We typically do not say them, disabled or limited people, right? We rather say that they are, differently able people. Yeah. So either way you are differentiating, right? By differentiating, you cannot be inclusive, right? If you say you are able and they're specially abled, this word special actually delineates, right? What is your idea about being inclusive without referring to this word?
Yeah. No, that's definitely a wonderful way to say how we are actually distinguishing between what is normal and what we think is not normal. So trying to standardize our definition of normal itself means different in different contexts, right? And just to think of like inclusivity, not referring to that as your first person characteristic, but maybe putting it as first sharing the persona, what they do, and adding that as a something that gets added to your bio, sort of. If people are open to sharing it, that's fine. If not, then it's probably not an inclusive way to look at it, is what my take would be. So I don't think that right now, I'm not sure if we should say that there is one particular term which would make them feel empowered the way that everyone should, sort of. But there is also a way that we are distinguishing them for the sake of how we are designing elements and experiences, interaction for them. But it also all the more makes them feel much more included than they were before, is what I'd say.
Doesn't want a special lane for him.
Yeah.
Right. So if someone is on a wheelchair, doesn't actually want one staircase, another ramp.
Right.
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 If you can walk on a steps, you can also walk on ramp. Then why do you have steps? Right.
Yes.
That is differentiation.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
differentiation is not inclusion.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you're designing, my view is that inclusive design is including more and more sigmas in the distribution
Yes.
rather than having different categories.
Right. Right.
Right. How do you think in terms of Six Sigma for that matter in product inclusion? Then you don't refer to normal, which is a mean.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So for a designer, focusing on mean is mean.
Right.
Okay.
I think so. I was actually going to add to that this while it is a very innate human or designerly way to begin with decomposition of the problem, and so I would rather not use the word differentiate but classify. Becomes easy, like you said, to distinguish certain nuances and needs of it. At the same time, this fear that the marginalized and by saying that I'm going to miss on the either ends of my bell curve and I'm going to leave these people behind as a concern when it comes to that. But truly, I too agree that we will only be inclusive when we are no longer speaking of this word and we are able to then come down to a holistic solution which is suited for all. I mean, in pure terms, a design for all. And that's interesting. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to add to that conversation. Maybe Sudhir or Pavitra can respond to that. Now, in the context of human-computer interaction, um, if you look at the trend, let us say you are developing an interface, and right now the trend is that you have close button at the right top corner, and suddenly if you change, that introduce certain difficulty for the users. Now, that is also one way of getting things standardized. But what is happening is in terms of standardization, things are getting, we can say, normalized in terms of culture. So I cannot have include culture, like say for example, all the Macs look same, all the metros look the same, all the airports look the same. So there's some kind of a, you say that okay, if these things are different, then people will find it difficult, but at the same time you also try to include culture. So is there any so I feel that there is a conflict. Okay, so maybe at some point we may have to address that. Any comments from you, Sudhir?
Yeah, I thought I'll give you an example. So culture is one, habit is another thing. Culture and habit, we confuse these things very often. We get used to things. I'll give an example. My father is 87 years old, and I have been trying to get him to use a smartphone for quite some time, and haven't succeeded really. But one thing he learned to do, he and my mother's 85, is to order on Big Basket, BB Daily, right? So they can order milk, and before early morning, before they wake up, the milk is at the door. And they find it very difficult. So I have an iPhone for them, which is always on the table. They don't use this as a phone. They use it only for ordering their milk and bread and all. They know which button to touch, and it'll open up into categories and which thing to go and look for it, right? They go by pictures. They got used to it. Okay, many times they get confused about, they go somewhere and they don't know how to go back, and also they just leave it till either me or my wife or my children or somebody's around to help them out. Few days back, Big Basket Daily changed the UI. Okay, they changed the, now they cannot find what is where. And one fine day they open it and they say, what is this? We don't want this, right? So anyway, that day I ordered for them, and they woke up earlier than before to catch the guy who comes to give the milk in the morning, and they caught him to tell him, go back and change it. We don't like it. Yeah, that guy saying, I don't know. I don't know what has been done. Yeah, it's the feedback. They spend good 15 minutes fighting with him to go tell your boss that you have to change it. We don't like it. We can't order it, and it's useless. So he said, sir, you complain on that. There's a help number and something. They called on that number. Believe me, they called at least 10 times to say, we don't like it. Go back to your original thing. That's more to do with habit. It is, in a way, I would say, is it a disability? It is a disability issue as well. You know, at that age, it's difficult for them to get used to something. And I have been forever thinking as a designer, okay, we need to have, maybe some filters which can take maybe third-party applications which can take a ready-made app and convert this into an app for 80 plus people, but there's probably no market or something for that. But I realized that it's something such a big issue. We were designing a newspaper in Delhi. Now, this is a classic thing. When we were studying at NID, Mahendra Patel was our teacher, and we were learning how people can react to changing the font from Times Roman to Helvetica or a sans serif into this, because they have been reading the newspaper for 20 years in a certain font, in a certain calibret, right? And we did this last year. I was extremely sensitive about what we change and what we don't change. And I can tell you, the younger designers just came saying, let's make it funky, let's add color, let's do. And I could see that what the reaction would be. And you get into the market with research, with a team of researchers, to test your prototypes in, and it's a very funny result that people like boring things. People like things which are more functional and not really very visual or something. People get used to things. And I think that getting used to becomes a part of our culture as well. That's something as designers we need to be extremely sensitive to. I would also like to address the earlier question about disability, calling them special, whatever. It doesn't matter. I think the design needs to be universal. Whatever, whether you're designing something or it's a product or it's an interface or it's a newspaper or it's a experience or it's just changing color in the font or logo, people will get used to this. So that's something which you need to consider, that what happens once people get used to this? How would you change it next time? 5 years later, what will happen? I'm facing that huge problem with the client of mine right now. I designed this identity 20 years back, Bajaj Auto. Okay, the flying bee, it's there on each and every motorcycle right now. And now the group is going through a synergy of, all identities need to get together. And I'm telling you, it's a mess because everybody has a different philosophy, different culture, and it looks such a simple thing to do. So whether we like it or not, like sustainability is on our shoulders. Whether somebody tells you or not, you've got to be thinking about how does something disintegrate? How does something go waste? How does something finish in its life, right? It is our responsibility. Universal, being universal, that people from different ages, different disabilities, different abilities will be able to use it, is also our responsibility. So many times I'll end up teaching the client, that whether you want it or not, it's a part of our brief. It's a mental I've taken up. I have to take it ahead, and I think all of us have to do this.
One last thought, if I can. Something actually, sorry, yeah. Something came to mind as you were talking about this, Sudhir. The reason why email came into existence itself was because when Surf, who is hard of hearing, wanted to communicate with his wife, who's also hard of hearing slash identifies as a person who's deaf, when he was in the office. But who's like using email now? Everyone. Similar to that is captions as well. Started as a way for people that aren't able to hear, that are not able to understand, to be able to actually have an alternate form of communication available. Who's using captions now? I feel like if I don't know a language and I want to watch a movie, I use captions every day. Even if something's like spoken so very fast, I'm not able to understand it, I use captions. So that's where we want to be, and that's where I think will take us there also to your question, sir. I feel like, trying to think more inclusively, but also designing for maybe picking a particular group, but in the sense you're designing for everybody with that.
Thank you. As much as I like this discussion to continue, I have the role of sort of trying to keep to the pace. And I like the idea of Six Sigma. I think we should start thinking about quality, design quality Six Sigma in terms of usability and universality of design. So I think that's a wonderful way to sort of put it. With that, I had one more question for Sudhir, but I'll park it for the moment. I'll go with the panel discussion and see if we have time. Then I'll come back to that's an open-ended question, which has I think it will generate, I believe, a lot of discussions. But I'll start with my first question, and we'll start with you, Sudhir. We'll go again in the same order. And here when we talked, and you started with saying that okay, you are not into product design or industrial design per se, but that's the idea. We want to talk about design in general. We don't differentiate between a design problem is a design problem. And so with that, the first question is, what does design or designing mean to you? And what do you see as the salient features of designing?
Okay, again, very interesting. This in some of my lectures, that's the first lecture which I give. What is design? Because a lot of designers confuse themselves to be artists. Okay, and this question did come up a little bit earlier. Am I an artist or am I a designer? So I would say that the tools are same. The artists and designers use the same tools. Is the colors, is the forms, is the renderings, is the drawing. Okay, it's the way to draw. But basically what we do is we take an abstraction and convert that into a clarity. That is a designer. So designer is somebody who can take a very abstract idea or a concept and clearly show it to the other person. Now, this is very important to understand, and students don't get this. This is where the skills come in, and this is where the role of the skills come in, which is so important and so undervalued. That you are as good as the communication which you can do. So if you have an idea, or if you get a clarity in your mind, you need to put it into the other person's mind exactly in the same way that you have it. What would you do? Okay, we can't really do file transfers the way they happen on computer. Remember that. So how do you transfer an idea from one brain to another brain? And the guys who do that are designers. Right?
Right.
We have tools to do that. We have drawings, we have information, we have infographics, we have colors, we make models. If I'm doing a showroom, I create a model. I take the client through saying, this is what will happen, how they will go through this. I need to present that. If it's a product, I go and do a clay thing, or I do a thermocol thing. I put it in their hands. I show a rendering, a 3D model, an animation of how this will finally work and what will happen. What I'm trying to do is transfer that idea, which is extremely abstract, to somebody else who sees this in a very tangible way and say, this is a product. He sees the product. He doesn't see the idea. He sees the final visualization. Now you can be as good as your visualization is. And that's why these tools are extremely important. So I laugh at times when fresh graduates come and say, sir, I'm very good in design. I don't have good skills, but I have very good ideas. And I tell you, ideas are useless. Ideas are useless if you cannot show them to somebody else. You can't talk about them, you can't write about them, you can't draw them out. So basically, when you're a student, please focus on getting skills. Ideas everybody has. But if you have good skills, you can show your bad ideas also in a very good light to somebody else. So for me, design is the clarity. That is design, a very abstract idea. You know, a lot of people come to, oh, we have this problem, we're doing this, this is not happening, that is not happening. What should we do? That's a problem. It could be a marketing problem. It could be a product problem. It could be a lot of time. This is what the strategy is, right? So depending on where you are in the design ladder, and I'm assuming that you know about this. Otherwise, it's on my website. You can check it out. Lowest level of design is jugaad. Second level of design is beauty. You make things nice. Third is design as process, and fourth is design as strategy. Depending on what your age is, what your experience is, what your knowledge is, you will give clarity at that level. So when you're a fresh graduate, you will listen and catch on to a product or a logo immediately and say, this is what I've been asked to do, right? When you are a little more experienced, it's the process which is more important. The tangible products and services will come out of that. Even more senior, when you are in the board level of a company or a bank, is the strategy which is the clarity you're bringing. That's why it's so important to have a designer at all these levels working with you. So I guess that answers, right?
Right, thank you. That was wonderfully put, and I hope there are people listening here. Well, ears open.
Same question. Oh, okay. Well,
Want me to repeat the question?
No, it's fine. So my understanding of design is primarily to bring in different elements together in a more harmonious way, and try to make sure that it makes sense for the one who is absorbing, or one who is for whom it is catered to. So it can come from any domain. It can be technology. It can be visual elements. There are tangible, intangible aspects to it. But essentially, what matters is how effectively you cater to whatever the idea was, and then how do you deliver through multiple sources and multiple paradigms. So that is more or less alluding to what Sudhir was also mentioning. But yeah, I think skills are important. You will be able to express your ideas more clearly in one or the other form. So that is essential part of it. At the same time, you also develop these ideas as you go on doing this act more and more. So it's not that maybe for the first time you may be clear with what exactly the way you want to represent. Maybe if you can iterate and do more such things, then you also get get better at your skills of externalizing your ideas. So that's pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I think mine is going to be a combination of both Sudhir's and Prasad sir's. I would say that I would probably categorize these into like people, processes, and tools on how you would get to a place. And necessarily, you'll need to understand who you're building for, how are they going to use it, what is the experience that you expect that a person will have. And then, of course, the skills that you will have will help you with executing how your idea is going to go into a form that you visualize. versus also thinking about how you want this to be communicated implicitly and explicitly. You may not always be there, but your design should speak for itself. So that is also all the more important. And just thinking about all these in general, something that reflects your values, your culture, as well as like what you've learned through, looking at the users that you're trying to design for, trying to build something out for, trying to actually have them reflect that in the designs that you're building is all the more important as well. So I feel like this will be.
And as always, the last person has hardly anything to say. But I'll give it a shot either ways. See, the designer in me would love to say design is an inspired act. Okay. And stop there. But over the years, we realized, and of course, our training and education into the space of design convinces you, and rightfully so, that it is creative problem solving. What kind of problem, which domain, is very open, and you can only appreciate that it is opening up furthermore when we understand that solutions exist at interdisciplinary intersections. As far as methods and tools, whether it's at a process level or at the level of even your thinking requires an approach. It requires training. It requires paradigm, as Prasad mentioned. Then comes your understanding. What is it before you even jump in to do the solving bit? The solving becomes more of the decision making that you take as a designer through this process. Of course, there are stages and steps and prototype and empathize, and those are methods. But what about the decisions? How do I take good decisions? Where do I take good decisions? This too requires some kind of ingraining and honing. I love the mention of the fact that you brought back culture. I mean, I think that is the theme of the day. But I will say that as a designer, one struggles because we understand that I'm not an artist. I'm not here only for self-expression. And then you figure out what I have just done. I am here to solve your problem. I'm here to cater to your needs first. And yet I question, how do I show that little bit of I? How do I develop my signature? Now, all great artists and designers may say we have a signature style, and they evolve and they bring in evolutions. So as a designer, as a writer who's also designing with words, or as a whatever, an architect, you see their work spans and you can see signatures develop over time, and probably those two are important features. Now, I just share one last bit. I do this interesting exercise at the starting of every year, academic year. I take a course for bachelor's in design, and I take a course which is on design analysis. Okay, so you can think of it as comparatively less creative, though I try to make it a little exciting. And I take a course on introduction to design, which is supposed to be highly creative and palpitating for the B.Tech students, all the B.Tech students. And I give them a questionnaire at the starting of that year. The same questionnaire. What is design? What are the important parameters as per you? And I give them these 10 pointers, design criteria, and I ask them to rank it. And what I find exciting to share is that our designers answer function as number one, and our engineers answer innovation as number one. Now, the interesting takeaway was after discussion that the engineers themselves kind of gave into the understanding that a designer is very creative, so they have that covered. I don't. I need to focus on innovation more. And a designer said, I'm very confident, I'm very creative, I have too many ideas to deal with, so I better focus on functionality and meeting needs. So I just wanted to share that with you. So prioritization of those parameters or criteria features will change, but to just share with you that there are those and methods and tools who will supplement and complement at times, and then comes development of your signature. Thank you. Okay. All right. Yes. I will hold.
Technical issues. Okay. All right. So the next question, which sort of continues from there, and shorter answers would help us to cover the. I mean, this is for everyone. So, what does it mean to be a designer? I mean, from a society perspective. So one is we are talking about design and teaching design schools, but there's a society out there sees people as designers and non-designers. And what does it mean for somebody graduating out to plan their career around what society's expectations are and what you are taught in school?
Um, well, I would also love to be revolutionary and say you should not care about society's expectations out of you. But we are here as to give service. I feel as a designer, we offer service. Don't take it in the sense of service provider. Service, you're honoring the society and meeting their needs. As we as educators try to do service towards our students or towards education. So I think that is the true role. Submit to the needs and provide with your skills and offer your service to society, as well being, smart enough or wise enough, I would say, to understand where you stand, develop your career and grow towards, and find a fine balance between what you love, that ikigai moment. I think that is, I will keep it short, so I will just say ikigai. Find your ikigai. Yeah.
I had something similar as well, so you caught me there.
I did. I like being first.
But another thing that I also want to say is that you don't have to be academically trained to do something to be able to serve also. It helps, definitely helps. Helps bring another new perspective, another new variable that you can consider as you're thinking about a problem. But you don't have to pressurize yourself to be able to do something just for the sake of it. And ultimately, we've been talking about creativity all along today, but creativity is also very subjective. And going back to what you said, trying to find your signature and what you do and what you're trying to do and how it impacts, the group that you're trying to design for is all that you need to keep in mind, and the rest will follow.
Yeah, one thing I would like to emphasize is the sense of responsibility, and at the same time looking at ethics and other things. So the reason being, designers don't think that okay, we are one group of people who will just do some design and then people will start using these things. Designers has the power to change the world, and any small decision you take can impact, it can go a long way in impacting the society. So so there has to be a sense of responsibility in whatever you design. um, Even earlier Professor Amresh, he has very one interesting slide where he talks about this spaceship where the button was put in a different configuration, and then uh, so um, but the thing is, see, now let us say if there's a medical practitioner, if there's the doctor who does not perform what he's supposed to do, then people will directly object to that. Maybe they'll go and scold him, or maybe there are some cases where they'll go and hit. And so, but if there is a wrong design which percolates through the society, nobody will come and object this to the designers. But it is a sense of responsibility which we as a designer have to inculcate, and then make sure that whatever we are doing, we are just and we are more uh, ethical in that sense. That also comes into takes into account the society and the culture. So whether it is offending somebody, whether it is uh, uh, sustainability, and all these things are part of this whole responsibility. I think that is what I would like to emphasize.
Yeah, read yours.
Yeah,
You're muted.
I'm sorry. Can you ask the question again? Because I missed out when you were asking the question.
Yeah, so the question is that we have been talking about what design is and how design students and designers should sort of behave, but there's a society out there which differentiates or has an expectation of what you are as a designer, right? So there's a society's view of a designer. And when somebody is graduating out of a design program, how do they sort of balance what society sees in you as a designer and what you have been taught in design schools as a designer, the kind we are talking about? How do you, yeah.
I don't see them very different. I think it's definitely we are the only people on this earth who can change the world, and we do, and we have, right? I think that is extremely important for us to believe in, so that whatever we do, we actually land up with that mindset of that I'm not into this for status quo. I'm going to change this. Okay, this is something which is important to keep alive for your later years. Chances are that as soon as you graduate, you would probably be looking for a job. You need to survive into the market. You need to look for a house, buy a car. So those worldly ambitions are extremely important as well. So this is something which I always say in all my lectures, is that you need to as students learn to survive by using your skills, your knowledge, the tools which you have learned. But don't forget that you have to move this society ahead. You have to move this world ahead. You have to do things in a way that makes life easier and better for people. Whether it's a commercial project or it's academic project or it's something else, you need to add that layer of making it better than yesterday. That's the only way the human growth has happened. And I think we are the people who are at the front of it today. And we need to move with that responsibility.
Right. So with that, I'll come to the next question. I'll combine the next two in the interest of time. So, I mean, we are all here. At least the panel has a lot of experience. I'm not saying you're old, but you're experienced people, right? And which means that from the time you started in your design school to where you are, your views on design would have evolved, right? So so the question is, how has this view evolved over a period of time, right? From when you graduated to where you are today. And if you could point out to specific experiences, events, people that have shaped your views on design. So what is that evolution, and anything that specific that you can point to. So Sudhir, it starts from you. Yeah.
Okay. So for me, I think over the years there are definitions of things which have become clear to me, and I love to share them. So for me, for example, I did not know the difference between being a student designer and a professional designer. Big confusion. And I can tell you that after so many years, I have that clarity. What does it mean to be a student? What does it mean to be a professional? I can provide that clarity, but that's a 20-minute lecture. So I'll leave it for later. The clarity between what I can call art and what I can call design is something which is very clear to me now. I mean, we do confuse art and design today, and I tell you, people at all levels do that. Designers do that. The clarity in terms of what is creativity is something extremely clear to me today. Something which I started with, I used to feel very proud when people would say, "Oh, you're so creative." And frankly, I tell you, somehow in the back of my mind, I used to get offended with that. It is, in a way, you're disrespecting all the training, all the knowledge, all the skills, and the exposure I've had over the years, which becomes intuitive for me to come out with the solution. So I have a very good simile with that. I give a very good example. I say, you've seen magic, right? You've seen magic when you were young or even now. When you see a magic, you get, wow, that's magic, right? But we also know that there's nothing called magic. It is just the skill of that person and that the deftness of that person and that knowledge, and he knows how exactly to do that in how much time. There's a lot of hard work behind that, extreme amount of hard work for you to see that magic. So when people say you are creative, what they actually mean is that looking behind it is years and years of exposure, not just years, a lot of reading, lot of knowledge, and lots of tools at your end. skills that you're in, right? When you put it all together and put it out, it's very clear to me. I can see things when many times we're sitting in meetings discussing a problem, the solution sort of it appears in front of me. I mean, yes, when I was younger, I would believe it's there because I'm creative, right? No, it's there because we're trained to think like that. It's just that time gap on coming out with solutions actually moves very, very quickly. It becomes faster and faster. It's just like computer. So I think for me, over the years, definitions of things have changed. They become very, very clear now. So that's a major change from designer to this. Also, I think when we are students, it's good to be idealistic. It's good to think that I would want to do this, reach here, reach there. All that is fine, but there's a huge responsibility we have towards our society, our parents, to the country we live in. And I think you need to contribute. Don't forget that you need to have that incremental, marginal contribution to where you are, your local community, your local society, your regional society, your field of work you are in. Important. So I think I've become very aware of these things now.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. So my understanding about design, of course, I don't associate myself as a designer, but it's more about design researcher. But I come from an engineering background, in which we do a lot of design of machines, design of different type of things. But uh, uh, it involves all type of activities which a designer has to go through in the process. But the understanding the nuances, say for example, how do you differentiate between art and how do you differentiate between different type of designs, and what are the steps, processes, methodology, is something which I till I entered CPDM, there's not much of clarity or understanding that how do we go about these things, including the research methodologies, etc. So the other important aspect is the with my supervisor, we used to have long conversations. That actually every time I used to discuss with him and go back and reflect. So that reflection has led to some of the inquiries, and then we went and read some book in the library, and then say, okay, he mentioned about this. I still remember when I had joined, I first went and asked him what is topology. So then the very simple explanations had led to inquiring into some of the aspects of topology, finding some relevant resources. So that way, this is one of the ways in which we try to develop a better understanding of the design and other things. But over a period of time, now we have also learned more about more from our students. So because the technology is also evolving, and now some of the students have actually uh, they have become digital artists and all sorts of things. So we feel that okay, it's not limited. There is a lot of things which are happening. So yeah, I think I feel that it's a learning process, and we every day we get better on it, especially in an academic environment. So every day we get the chance to learn more and more from the ecosystem and the people around you. Okay.
For me, I think over the years, my major realization has been that design isn't just about pixels anymore. It's that flavor of human touch that we're adding nowadays. And I would say that we are no longer in the problem solving era. I don't know how many of you disagree on this. It's not more like you find a problem, say my AC is not working, and you want to identify how to fix your AC. It's not about you jumping into the solution mode right away, but you're also thinking about what a person goes through if at all that scenario occurs to you. So it's more of an experience era that we're all in, and adding that human touch to whatever we do has, I think, significantly impacted and influenced my journey throughout the years, I would say. So just starting from where we began, like everyone else has mentioned, like understanding, unlearning and relearning all of the definitions that we may have learned across the years also comes through practice, I believe. There's no one particular instance, one particular experience, one particular person that has shaped it. But from where I was, maybe when I ran my very first research study versus to where I am right now, I think practice has made things better. I wouldn't say perfect, it has made things better. So all of these, I think, coming together, I would say, has shaped up how I view design and what are the theories and impacts that has been there for me in the past years.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate being last now because I got some time to think. Because if I am to look back at my last 2 decades, so 2022, I joined my bachelor's program. So now you know how old I am. I can break it into 3 phases: idealism, the dark ages, and realism. Idealism because I joined with a lot of hope and very idealistic, very rigid, very definitive definitions of or understandings on certain things. This is what it is, and this is how it is done, and everything else is taken care by your innate creativity. And over time and roughening it up through the years, you realize not so much. And then, of course, the dark ages. Now note, the dark age is actually always a promise for a better tomorrow. So that was a very interesting, or a dark, not necessarily bad, but dark just that I am not able to find my way. And an explorative phase, space of trying to broaden. So you want clarity, but you also want wideness. You want granularity, but you also want a much larger systemic view. And I think we got a lot of that, particularly during my doctoral studies. In my thesis, I wrote, they were the best of years, they were the worst of years. Okay. I did cite Charles Dickens, don't worry. And now, these last few years, I think postdoctoral has been realism. That the fact that these qualities, these opposing qualities and aspects of design or being a designer coexist. It is this and that, this duality and celebration of it, and losing that very rigid bracket. While we do lean on it, just as we were talking, that in design we classify, we categorize, we decompose, we solve, but we then bring everything together in harmony, is where I am right now. As for people who have influenced me, largely my teachers, starting from my father. My teachers at school, my art teacher, my music teacher, my dance teacher, my English teacher, in architecture. And I'm not to say that all teachers were my favorite. They were the good, the bad, the ugly. Okay, they're the ones. But these experiences shaped me. So I give a lot of that. Society and experience as a teacher itself, life's events as a teacher also. But definitely the opportunity to meet, say, some great designers, to be in B.V. Doshi's class and listen to him for hours and come out exhilarated, not understanding anything. Okay. And then finding guidance and discussions, not just in our lab with our advisor, but with all the faculty here. The number of hours we have spent discussing and delving, our seniors, our friends, and today now our colleagues and students. So I think that's been the journey so far. So I'm exploring realism right now.
Right. So last question, very short answers. We have absolutely run out of time. I'll start again with Sudhir. What is the next frontier? Design practice, design research. Short answers only.
What's the question?
Next frontier in design practice, design research. What do you see as the next?
I I don't think there's any other frontier. It's always been mixed frontier for me. So,
Right.
okay, okay, I'll stop here. But I would say that it's probably wrong for us to consider that 4 years or 5 years of education which you spend in your this age, though is something what you should do for the rest of your life. Very wrong to think. So that's why I did in my introduction, right, that I am a graphic designer, visual communicator. I don't believe I am. I'm an architect. I'm a product designer. I'm a complete tech guy. We develop things. We develop products. I mean, it's you need to continuously keep changing with time, keep learning with time. I think the moment somebody can sit and define you is the end of you. You're not a designer anymore. You stop learning.
Right. Thank you. That was a good one. Yeah. Yeah, I agree to that, but I think we also have to respond to the changing situation. So that is one thing. Maybe if we can inculcate, uh, because the changes which are happening, they are at a much faster rate than we expect. So maybe I'm not sure whether it was more predictable earlier, but at present it is much more important to understand the speed of change with which things are changing around us. So I think it can be climate or whatever, AI and many other things, but that we have to bring in into our design decisions. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe just to add one nuance to what you said, responding and adapting, and also learning how we can work with those. For example, when the mobile phone technology came up, there was a huge revolution around it. People thought, okay, this is going to replace a lot of things for us. But we've come a very long way. We've learned how to work with mobile phones. Same with AI, generative AI, large language models, everything that's coming up. We're also wanting to learn how we can actually work with it rather than thinking and fearing that this might be somewhere where I think this may replace what I do. So trying to think of situations and again arriving at decisions based on how we can work with whatever the technology is. Maybe that's a tool for us that we work with, but trying to identify how we can get through with it rather than having that be the forefront of things. So yeah, I think my frontier would be to work with whatever comes next rather than just thinking about like, let's think differently, sort of.
Keeping it very short. Resilience. I think that is the next front. And that is the need of the coming frontier because I don't know what's coming. So building resilience.
Right. So with that, I'll thank you all. I think I had parked one question, so I'll go back to that question. And I'll start again with Sudhir because he started on a very interesting note. This is something which we have discussed here as well, on and off. You touched upon and this discussion has happened a bit already, but I still want to go back to that, is which is when we define what is Indian design. For example, we understand what is a Nordic design. What would Indian design be defined as? Yeah, I mean, we can make an attempt. Of course, we can. Yeah.
No. I think we have full clarity of this. It's something which we think is very difficult to define. I mean, define an Indian and you can define the Indian design. Very easy to do that, right? so see, design is not the moment you say Indian design. I think we need to be clear what we mean by Indian. We are defining a geography. We are defining people. We are defining their culture. We are defining what people eat, how they eat, where they live, what do they do, what they breathe, what do they do for their living, right? Where do they go? How do they interact? How do they communicate? Anything to do with this is Indian design. I think this is a question. Now, I face this question for last 35 years. And I don't know if you know, I ran this magazine called, earlier it was called Pool Magazine. I used to print this monthly. Then it was called Design India Magazine. And I focused that I'll only publish Indian designers in that. So you always have a designer on the cover and maybe about 10 designers inside. And I'm out with 10 different volumes. So every year, 12 volumes. So every year, one volume. So I ran this magazine for 12 years. I had 12 volumes. And this goes into almost every design university college in China, in Japan, in Europe, and in US as an example of Indian design, because they need to study what is Indian design, right? So
Right.
Indian design is what a Indian designer does for Indian projects. I think it's as simple as that. But
Right.
if you
Okay.
want to put this, if we, there are many other ways we can put this into cliches, into visuals, into colors, into functionality. But I did start with that. There's something called minimalism. We understand that what it is, right? You say Nordic, we understand that. I think just look at how we do things as Indians. I had a client very recently, last week, briefing me saying minimalism, modular design chahiye, because he's learned these words somewhere from one of his trips abroad. So I'm saying, where is our life minimal in our life? Look at the kind of weddings we have, right? Look at the kind of food we have. We are not minimalist people. I mean, if you want to impress our friends in Europe, yes, please do minimalist design. If you want to impress your teachers in Tokyo, please do that wabi-sabi architecture. That's what we like and we do, right? It's good. We like eating Chinese, we like eating Italian, we like eating sushi. It's good to sample all of that, but that's not us. We are spices. We are spicy. We are a full thali. We don't want only one sandwich and one this thing. I want 10 things in my food. That's what Indian design is.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Thank you.
And I think, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Okay. No, I'm saying it'll take some time for us to become confident that this is designed for us. For us, the design is, as a profession, as an industry, is very new. It's just come, 60, 70 years back from Europe. Though it has existed in our culture for forever, but as a profession, it's very new. And you must realize that all those teachers who came in 60 years back to teach us were Europeans and Americans. I mean, NIDs, if you look at the India report, was written by Charles Eaves. He was, and his wife Ray, Charles and Ray actually wrote that paper based on which the Indian industrial design, ethos has been founded. So I don't blame it on anyone, but for now, till now, we have tried to please the designers and the writers and the researchers in other parts of the world, saying we understand what you do and we can do it just the way you do it. I think that's not what Indian design is. We need to get confident into doing our own things, and that's what we need to teach our children. That no, what you think, if you do a Basel kind of font, it is good. If you do Bauhaus kind of design, it is good that you understand and do that. Can you do something which will work into our society, into our culture, into our thing? That's why I put so much emphasis on culture now.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wants to take a stab at this?
I'll just say something as an extension, not as a contradiction, which is that yes, while our aesthetics and our mannerisms and our rituals are loud or larger than life, and hence, as Sudhir notes, maximalist, in our philosophy, we are not very maximalist. We are inclusive, we are large, but the Indian philosophy is quite simple, grounded, softer. And I think, again, this existence of duality, of very simple, all-permeating, omniscient kind of a philosophy with a very colorful, vibrant, open, all-encompassing front is what Indian design is to me.
Just to add one point to that, say it's already mentioned earlier. Sudhir was mentioning that there is an identity to things what you do, and this if you are focusing more towards the other population, then it may not be called as an Indian thing. Say, just to give an example, say for example, UPI is one example where you can say that okay, is for Indian, it's for designed by Indian. So now this is something which other people are trying to replicate and make sure that okay, they also inculcate these type of things. So some of these can become the what you say examples of Indian design. Um, Identity and the diversity are the two factors also influence this. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just take the mic and I'll thank you all. I think this was wonderful. As I said, we have run out of time, so this is the time where we close it. And I'll invite Professor Dibakar Singh to come and felicitate our speakers with their mementos and design ambassador certificates. Of course, Sudhir, you have to come to visit us at CPDM to get yours. And that's the catch. We can, of course, post it to you, but we'd love to host you at some point at CPDM. So, yeah.
Vishal, next week.
Oh, wonderful. Do let me know. If you're here, please let me know.
I'm there very often in Bangalore,
Okay.
so I'll let you know. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, thanks.
Well, so even you're not giving you anything, I am not let go this opportunity to explain. I'm not going to let this opportunity to explain you what I expect you to be a design ambassador for us. Right, so it means that we have been, very lucky to have you among us, and I, as ambassador, will expect you to tell good things about us to the rest of the world. Yeah, so that is the idea, and your gifts are all here. And when you come here, we'll hand it over and we'll talk more. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, my pleasure.
It is a sort of making already ambassador a double ambassador now. You should tell more good things about this. Really special to get it from him. So thank you.
Pavitra. Vishad. Yeah, we need to watch out. Okay, I think yes. It's out of the.
This is done by our own students and done made also here. Wow. Yes, hope you recognize this. Yes.
All right, thank you all. With that, we close this session. Just a reminder, this is the 14th edition, so all of these are on YouTube. So if you want to watch the earlier versions, if you haven't, there's a lot of interesting talks there as well. Typically, we go live and then we go back and then, of course, edit some of those videos to make them shorter and so on. And as I said earlier, after all of these 25 events, we'll have a book coming out at some point, and we'll share that as well. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Lovely.
Very fast. Yeah.
Finally managed to just get in time. Thank you, sir.
Don't they have technology inside the big bus? And what people can tell what they want and how they can interpret it. It's okay. That is not the. See, physically, the architecture is there.
Yeah.
The government will tell you can have steps and you can have. Why they can't do like these steps?
Actually, a great question. Lines for accessibility and digital. So that is something in process, but it's not in devised. Anyway, yes.
I tell maybe one other thought. So as far as what I've seen in the accessibility has always been and faster. Not like something like but incorporate that at the
Sorry, I've been traveling, so.
but like I said, there's
I haven't split it yet.